What's up, guys? We're getting back to Unfuck Your Cycle, and originally I had planned on discussing the basics of testosterone, and that was because I thought that was kind of step one to getting into a PED regimen. And then I realized when I was browsing through Instagram, there's another step one, and it's astronomically more important. Okay? And that is your training when you're using PEDs. This is the biggest fucking mistake I see people make over and over and over again. So if you follow me on Instagram, you know I recently posted about two of my favorite pros, Foad, I apologize if I'm saying your name wrong, bro. Foad and Antoine. Again, sorry if I messed up your name, brother. But they both suffered pretty serious injuries at the last stages of their prep. Right? And so Fuad tore his tricep, Antoine tore his bicep, and they were weeks away from their show. They were in great shape. It's big comeback shows for both of them. I was so psyched to see them on stage, and then they suffer these really bad injuries. And both these guys, you watch their training, you look at their coaches, they're smart as hell. They didn't do something stupid to fuck this up. And so I think there's two kind of routes people go when they're trying to attribute these injuries to something. And we want to attribute them to something, right? We don't want to just say, it's a sport, injuries happen. Little sidebar. Bodybuilding is a sport. If you think otherwise, you haven't done a real posing session. You do one real posing session, you will change your mind fucking fast. Okay. So back on topic, though, both these guys are really smart. They still get injured during prep. And so people look for explanations for that, right? And there are two explanations they come up with. One is they were training stupid. These guys were not. And the other is, it's the steroids, bro. The steroids, they destroy your tendons, the ligaments, and you're just fucked. And, there is some evidence that some anabolic steroids will strengthen your will not strengthen your connective tissue, but will strengthen your musculature so the tendons, ligaments can't keep up, and it leads to increased risk of injury. In my experience, I'm not talking just personally, I'm talking about, everybody that I've talked to, everybody that I've worked with, etc., etc. It's not so much the steroids themselves. It's the really, really fucking stupid shit that people do on them. Here's the thing that you got to remember when you're taking PEDs of any sort. They're going to increase your recovery ability. And people hear that and they think, well, that means I can train harder. And I can do more work. And that is the fucking stupidest shit you can fucking do. And here's why. The goal of building muscle, the goal of getting stronger, is to be progressive with it, right? And the biggest part of that is your recovery. So if you get these increased recovery resources from PEDs, and then you go and spend those resources on more fucking training that you didn't need in the first place, then of course you're going to get injured. Of course you're going to make shitty progress. And that's why you see people on grams and grams and grams of gear, which is totally unnecessary, but they don't know how to train right. They don't know how to diet right. They try to do everything because they're like, I'm on drugs. I can do whatever the fuck I want. And then they end up getting hurt or they stall out or whatever. And so if you have a solid training and diet regimen set up, you do not need to take all this fucking gear to get really strong and really fucking ripped. And if you look at the older guys, they all say the same thing because they've all been there and they've all made the same mistakes and they all know. So that's the biggest, number one thing you need to go into knowing when you're starting a PED regimen is that you are not going to change your training or diet. You had that shit nailed down in the first place or else you're not ready for it. 100% not ready for it, okay? Then you go and get the doctor's supervision and the doctor's approval and the doctor's insights, and then you start making incredible gains. Okay, so now let's go to the part where how does this result in injury? If these guys are smart and, probably had solid training and diet set up to begin with and probably didn't do stupid shit because they were on gear, why did they end up getting injured? Well, here's where I think the bad rap that anabolics get in terms of injury comes from. Yes, okay, I want to be clear. There is evidence that shows, okay, you're going to strengthen your muscle, not your connective tissue, you're going to have weaknesses there. The bigger thing that I think you need to remember is that steroids are going to allow you to maintain your strength and size while getting very, very lean. But getting very, very lean is still going to increase your risk of injury because it's decreasing your recovery ability. This is where it all comes together, right? If your recovery ability is down, right, but you can't tell that because the gear is making up for it, right? And you scheduled this training routine and diet in advance because you're smart and you plan ahead. Well, you get there and you don't realize how depleted you really are. And so you're like, hell yeah, I feel great. Let me keep pushing. And then you end up getting injured. And hopefully it's a minor injury like my tendonitis or, Ramey's shoulder. Hopefully it's not something major like what happened to these guys, but that shit can happen. And that I do think is luck of the draw. Did you have a minor tweak that you can recover from and that's your sign, hey, I need to fucking back off? Or is it all just waiting to happen and you catch the bad luck and you end up having a major injury that takes you out of your competition completely? So I know this was kind of a rambling video. It's because I'm very passionate about the subject, about, people who go off the deep end with their training and diets because they think they can get away with it. It's just not true. It's 100% not true. And that's the number one thing you need to know before going to a PED regimen. Okay? Number one thing, see a fucking doctor. Number two thing, have your diet and training set and don't fucking change them.